Hello, everyone. Good evening and welcome to Think Tank, a 1 hour in-depth analytical look into the governance, rule of law, economy, society, and politics of the Fourth Republic. My name is Karen Dodu, and I'll be your host for Think Tank. As usual, my guests are two members of the network of thought leaders from the Dankwa Institute and the Imani Center for Policy and Education Ghana. That's Franklin Kujo and Richard Ahiagba. Gentlemen, you're welcome to today's edition of Think Tank.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you.
Okay, so as you may already know by now, they're both right-wing thinkers, but often have diametrically opposed approaches to solving problems, unlike the two main political parties, both claiming the social agenda, but come at it from a very different point of views. To our discussion for today. In 8 days, the Supreme Court will give its judgment on the election 2020 petition. The leader of the opposition National Democratic Congress, John Dramani Mahama, after last year's elections, filed a case challenging the validity of the election results. Now, in all the 11 hearings, the petitioner has argued his case. However, both respondents, that's the Electoral Commission and President Akufo-Addo, believe the petitioner had no case, as the legal team failed to provide much evidence. Now, this did not stop the petitioner, however, in his quest to get justice. After 17 citizens and 8 applications, including 3 review applications and 5 ordinary applications, the petitioner made sure he was pushing to the latter. Now, however, he was unable to convince the judges to allow the witness for the first respondents, thus the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, to mount the witness box. Now, as it stands now, all parties are on the same page and the closing addresses have been filed. For now, we wait till the 4th of March for the final judgment on the case. Now, this will not be the first time that elections have been contested in Ghana. Following the 2012 elections, the court ruled in favor of the declared winner, that's former President John Dramani Mahama. However, it paved way for several declarations that brought about electoral reforms. Today, we want to find out how different is this petition from the previous one, and would it bring about any changes or any electoral reforms? Gentlemen, once again, you're welcome.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Same here as usual. So it's been a long process, if I must say, and finally we're going to get the judgment from this case. But then I want to get your views. How has it been so far? Your impression on proceedings so far, looking at all that has ensued in court. Let me start with you, Richard.
Thank you, Karen. Good evening to my brother, yourself, and your listeners. I think so far, so good. The processes have been allowed to unfold. Once again, we are showing leadership in a democratic exercise that we've embraced in this Fourth Republic, to the extent that people are free to contest elections, and when they do, either as independents or on the ticket of a political party, when they do and they feel that they are not very satisfied with the result, there's a recourse for them which is also democratic and peaceful. I think that we have demonstrated again as a country that our democracy is evolving. And so to that extent, I think that we all need to pat ourselves on the back and just celebrate the fact that, yes, we're growing, though more needs to be done. But the process as it's unfolded has been very peaceful. The law was argued, the facts are argued. Where people are arguing emotions too, we have seen it. And so on balance, it's been a very fair process, if you ask me. So far, so good. I guess later on, if that is just what you need, maybe we'll get into the actual discussions and what case people have or don't have in court.
Franklin, your impressions so far about proceedings in courts?
Well, the rules of civil conduct in any dispute is that you turn to the court, the arbiters of dispute, and to the extent that the usual house that we had initially, the angst and the anger that we had, eventually led to a petition and the court. As Richard has said, just a while back, it's testimony to the fact that we have grown indeed since the last petition. And indeed, every election is always a test. And to the extent that this may be the second time that an election is being challenged, and the courts are still the avenues for seeking redress. It is civil, and I think that yes, there have been times when temperaments have fled. Should I call it? Some obviously petitioners and the respondents have had moments, rare moments where they've made very passionate. Should I call it? They made their cases passionate. At the end of the day, what we all expect is that there will be judgment, and I think the courts have said that on March 4th there will be a judgment. The good thing is that this petition has traveled within the stipulated period of time that was legally allowed. There can be many interpretations. There can be various interpretations of what justice will look like, depending on who is speaking.
Okay.
I mean, I have my own biases and my own proclivity towards the electoral commission in this case. And I think that without that necessarily coloring the cases that they called, I think we were fairly treated to some amount of legal dexterity in pursuing matters. Some have said the petitioners were probably emotional and they were not arguing law. But I thought I was sufficiently educated, at least. When the petitioner's lawyer spoke, I understood him better in terms of the explanation that he gave. I suspect that the respondent lawyers were not naturally that gifted with the eloquence, but they also made their cases. But at the end of the day, I think there were reasons why the matters went to court. And I suspect the release that will be sought, the judges will base their rulings on the release. And then eventually, after March 4th, we should have one coherent, united country. Because I think that's what it is. The difference here is that instead of spending 8 months in that very tense and nothing was working, we should get back to our lives. And then will be lessons from the judgments we all share. I mean, I certainly have some lessons I'd like to share, but I'm sure after the conversation
we'll talk on that. Before we talk about the lessons from this particular case, do you see or are there any similarities with this petition as compared to the 2013 one, Richard?
Okay, so just restate your question for me, because I was actually looking at the petition to show you something, but restate your question for me.
No, I was saying that looking at this petition as compared to the 2013 one, do you see any similarities? Franklin was talking about the duration, but then aside that, do you see any similarities in the two petitions, looking at proceedings so far?
Yeah, I think that, well, the obvious departure is how timed this one is. The initial one we're learning at the time, and that was the first one of its kind, at least in this republic. So it was an evolving matter. So it carried on for too many days, if you like. And so that we've learned from that to be able to legislatively time it so that it doesn't disrupt, because some of the concerns that were raised was that it was interrupting economic activity. People were watching to see what was going to happen. Is it going to go against the incumbent or something? So there was some level of uncertainty, whether you like it or not. There's some item of truth in the argument that perhaps it may have tempered with the business climate at the time. And so we learned that is different from what we have now. Now we have a more structured system, but of course the Supreme Court, being what it is, can depart and then make new rules in the interest of justice, which they have done. I think this has traveled in excess of 50 days now, and by the time judgment is given, I think we'll probably be well into 60 days, which was supposed to be 42 days per the legislation. So that is different, but of course, given that they've departed from what is provided for legislatively, we can say that it's not much of a difference, but it's something to note. In terms of the tone of the debate itself, I see a bit more decorum. Back then, when 2013, 2012, some level of discipline, and even the public commentary on the election also was a bit more disciplined in the media in terms of talking about it. Not media as in terms of the media operatives, but the political commentary on it was a bit more tamed back then. But this time, there's a bit too much of people taking liberties, and I think that that is something people know. So, excitement gets to people sometimes. And one other difference that I noticed is that in 2013, the issues appear more germane. You understand the basis for those claims and the mood of the country. You can tell that this thing, the arguments that they are making, the probability that it is true that the petitioner had won the election in 2012 is the probability is high, because you saw that the country was mobilized somehow for change. And the reason you can connect that is that when you saw in 2016, that momentum carried on, that desire to validate what happened in 2012 was carried on and was done emphatically in ways that you cannot dispute in 2016. But now the issues are a bit muddied. They are rather speculative. They are more like maybe this, but you don't see a will behind that. You don't see a public spirit to say that yes, we think there's a case here to go.
Is it because of the evidence? You didn't see much of that all?
And across the country, there was no groundswell to say, yes, this thing that we see there's a problem. You understand? The only basis, I think, just looking at it before you deal with the fact, the only basis for people to want to go to court because they think that they may have won the election is perhaps, maybe we have 137 seats, right? Which got to people in the midst of excitement. We won not only 130, we won 141 seats, right? So that then we have one presidency. So those were the rather subjective, assessments that people were making. There was no hard evidence of numbers, because if you look around this country, going into this election, it was evident the NDC was going to lose, right? So there isn't that feeling to say that some social sense supported the position that the NDC has won the election. There wasn't that. And that is how come you see that the high-ranking members of the party will have to go out there and try to spark the public sentiment to say that, we have won this election. Let's go out and establish and celebrate. Let's go out and form government. Let's go out and do this. By the time everything happens, we are going to win. You understand? Much like the comfortable lead sentiment, right? Because you've lost the election, but you want to say something for people to think that you have won it. So that, for me, is the problem with the petition this time. But back then, there was almost a social consensus feeling that it is, if President Akufo-Addo, then candidate Akufo-Addo, if he had won the election in 2012, nobody would be surprised. But now, if that same sentiment is not present, so that is the difference. So that was what gave credence and believability to the case that was sent to court in 2012, 2013, as opposed to what we have now, which is like you are pretending to be asleep. You understand? You pretend to be asleep because you don't want to be woken up. You understand? You can stay asleep forever if you are pretending to be asleep. That's the difference. So whereas in 2012, it was consciously possible. People were kind of, if you told anybody, they'll believe it. Now, if you tell anybody, Mahama wins this election, they'll just simply won't believe it because they know it's not possible. You understand? So that is the difference that I see. But on balance, the application in terms of the justices giving the forum and allowing that our laws work, availing the processes to all petitioners, two petitioner, two respondents, to ensure that they make their case again on public, in a public forum for everybody to follow the issues and then come to a conclusion that this or that is the outcome. I think that there is no departure, and I think that is good for our practice.
Franklin, you agree with Richard?
Well, it's an interesting analysis it's given. I think I've seen the petitioner's case. I don't think they've been dwelling too much on figures necessarily as in the whether somebody won or not. I think they are saying essentially that the EC chair did not show fidelity to her work, to her construct, given the contrasting figures that she had. And that is overwhelmingly knowledgeable by everybody in this country right now. I suspect what it is that, yes, the case was built on the fact that the EC did not follow certain steps and did not show conduct. And they're saying that the figures they gave, on what authority did she declare some of the figures? Because they were not done according to law. As to whether the sentiments of the MPP winning or not, I'm not too sure. I'm sure Richard is making extrapolations that are very interesting. Because the matter before court, I suspect simply is to say that if she had, the way she announced the result, right, by her own standard, she didn't give credence to, she didn't make it feel as if she was announcing the true results. And so she was just called upon to announce the true results. In fact, that's why the petitioners were at sea when they were being asked to produce what their own calculations say. And it's a clever way of dodging the responsibility. That I'm not the returning officer, but that's why I'm in court. To find out that what exactly did she announce and what went into the announcement. That's the way I understand the case. For me, it borders on administrative power and the way it's been exercised, discretionary power. That's what I'm saying, that one of the biggest lessons we should be learning from this is that, look, in the 2012-2013 election petition, there was something else that stood out. You recall when Afarijan was confronted by the MPP that, look, we think there are some questions you need to answer. His usual riposte initially was, you can go to court. Remember?
Yeah.
But when he sat in the dock and was being grilled, eventually he of course, he almost accepted responsibility, even though he did say that some of the claims were not true. But you saw this executive discretionary power reduced to the level of, proper accountability. We didn't see that in this case. I think this whole idea of making sure that you can exercise the rule not to jump into a box because somebody wants to, is quite frankly nauseating to hear. What we did not see in this election, in fact, that the accountability mechanism that should have endeared the EC to shut everybody else up. Because at this juncture, it lingers on everybody's mind, even including the respondent. I'm sure some of the, of course, in the area of politics, you say, okay, well, we beat them at their own game. Some legal minds have interacted and say, oh, it's a strategy. It's not strategy going to the next election. Because in the next election, trust me, you may not even have the incidents. You may have incidents where regional coalition people may be forced to declare results at gunpoint or something. I'm not scaring anybody.
I get you.
But these are the things that are likely to happen. And I think that we need to, I was a bit mortified when I heard that the judiciary, some of the judges were saying this is not a place of accountability, but essentially somehow suggesting that, and to the extent that the respondents are suggesting as well, that if you want accountability, this is not the place to go. How else do you settle this? I've heard it's an adversarial system. So because it's an adversarial system, of course, everything that comes to court is adversarial. I don't think two people go to court just to go and teach themselves niceties. So, frankly, I do understand. So I'm looking more at the future, and I shudder to think that we would have had an election petition run through, and in this case, I've heard all kinds of permutations. Oh, in 2013, Dr. Bawumia, my good friend, was so excellent in that he produced a number of series of evidence. That's how come it forced the EC to jump into the box. No, Farjan elected to be in the box to clear his name or to clear the doubts, right? I don't think Farjan was forced at the time to get into the witness box.
Yeah.
So I think it is important. For me, that's the only lesson, and that's my fear and my worry. Whether the NDC made a case or not, I'm not. You see, there's a certain sense that we would have. Anyway, judgment. You don't know how the judgment.
Let's not jump into the elections yet.
Except to say that 2012 and 2013, the difference here is that.
I mean 2021 and 2020.
2020 and 2013,
13.
the election petition. There are moments of rare opportunity to learn about the ways of court and all of it. But I've been intrigued, and maybe at some point in time I just take reading the law for the fun of it, not necessarily to practice. But it's an interesting conversation to have. I suspect that somehow there may be some consequential, probably others giving. I don't know that the court may say, well, the EC must do A, B, C, D, like it happened in the, I think one of the 2012, I don't think, there was an incident where the EC, I think the 2012 election or I've forgotten what it was.
2013.
Recommended certain reforms.
Yeah.
So we need to be just cautious so that we organize ourselves properly and not to get into these situations again.
Speaking about the reforms, do you see any electoral reforms coming out of this petition? Because in 2013, it brought way to quite a number of reforms. But then looking at how the petitioner has argued out his case, is it likely that we may have some reforms, particularly electoral reforms, to how things are done? Richard?
Yes. Well, electoral reforms, perhaps, but I don't see a clear case of that because, one, the petitioner says they are not arguing or contesting the legality of the election, in which case they agree the election was legitimately held or there is no contention about the processes. So maybe there's nothing there really to look at. The only thing I think they've quibbled at is the regional coalition that was put as part of the process, in which case they may want to argue for a return to the old ways where results were gotten directly from the constituencies at the strong room. Maybe that, but I don't see how you go from improving a system to going back to the old. So that case will have to be made that for the strong room having to collect data from 275 constituencies is better than expecting a bulk number from 16 regions. That will be an interesting argument to have. But you see, I think Franklin is falling victim to the logical contraries that the NDC is advancing, right? You go to court and you have a set number of petitions that you have brought. And in those, you are saying that in sum total, apart from the call that the CI 135 be annulled, the rest of them point to a breach of Article 63.3, in which case you are suggesting that nobody won the election. Okay? That is a numbers argument you want to make. You are saying that nobody has got a specific number to satisfy Article 63.3. So if that is your case, then you cannot come to court without numbers, because then what you are saying is that I am just guesstimating. I am just throwing this out there. I'm just testing the waters. I'm just going on a wild goose chase, committing the country and the resources of the country to go on an expedition that I don't have an idea how it will end. Okay? That's what is the case. But then when they were pushed to say, show me what number tells you nobody got 50 plus 1, they said, we don't have those numbers. And the natural position would have been that you have those numbers that satisfied you that you know you haven't gotten it, and you know the other person didn't get it. So now order, part of their petition, order the first respondent to organize a fresh election. This is your petition. This is your plea before the court. So if these are your pleadings, and you've come to court without numbers to show the position you are claiming, then I am at sea when you are saying that now it is about the numbers. Now it's about public service, to the responsibility of the EC to show that she has no question to answer. That is not why you came to court. Now, the question about Dr. Farijan entering the box in 2013 is totally different, on the basis that he wants to prove his case. You understand? The EC at the time, first respondent, under Dr. Farijan, wanted to prove their case, to say that we did everything according to the rules of the game. So they were forced to come. It is to their case to come. Now, the EC today, you, the petitioner, you come to court and say, well, the EC didn't calculate or have the numbers to be 51%, 51.2 or something, 51.2% for President Akufo-Addo. So therefore, organize a fresh election. They're asking you, what is Akufo-Addo's number? You say you don't have it. But what you have, you were led in cross-examination to calculate and add up to that. Your contrary numbers, you cannot produce. So what is your case? So then the respondent now sees that you don't have a case. So I don't have to get in the dock to prove anything, because the case you brought, you cannot prove. You understand? So do you play, which game do you play? Football, basketball? Do you play any games? Do you like any?
No.
Okay. So imagine that you like Barcelona. You know about them, right?
I know Barcelona.
And they have Messi, right? And Barcelona is playing my brother's favorite team, okay? And Barcelona is winning. And Messi is sitting on the bench. And then his favorite team is saying, oh, bring Messi. But they are winning. They don't need Messi to come and play for them to win. So what they are saying is that the first respondent, the second respondent, says that our witnesses who are prepared and have submitted their witness statements to testify if push comes to shove, if we are losing, we'll bring our star witnesses. But we have seen we are winning the game. So they don't have to come and testify. They don't have to come and play for us to win. So, two things. If the petitioner or the opponent you are playing knows you are winning and they are calling you to bring your best player, two things can be the case. They either want to injure him intentionally, destroy him for you. And if you are smart, you won't put your best player when you don't need him to play. You only put him to change the game in your favor. So the case in court is that, look, you have not proved your case. We don't have to put our star witness there to make us win. We are winning the case based on the weakness and the lack of evidence of your case.
Are you suggesting that?
So I'm only using a sports analogy. I'm not judging the case. You understand? So that, Karen, if the petitioner feels that they have proved their case, they should be happy the Messi of the respondent or the Ronaldo of the second respondent don't want to play, or the coach don't want to bring them because they feel that they are winning the game. Why do you throw your star witness or your star player to to go and be injured by a losing opposition. You understand? At that point, he will tell you, okay, so you are winning. And they will destroy your team. So next time when you go to play, you can play. So it is a matter of evidence. You have not been able to adduce the evidence to substantiate. If you look at, I think they made about 6 or 7 pleas or something, summed together. They are only saying that the election as it stands is not such that the president has won 50 plus 1. So do a fresh election. And the court is asking, what is your basis? Now, my brother was talking about the authority on which the EC chair made the declaration. The results of the election, which is available to all the parties. The pink sheets available to the MPP, to the NDC, to the NDP, PDP, MPNC. All of them have copies. Everybody has copies. So that is the authority on which she made the declaration. Now your disagreement and your problem is, oh, she made declaration once, it was a mistake, she corrected, Karen, you don't go to court to do that. Again, when we talked the first time, we're talking about democracy and how it's flourishing in Ghana. Go to parliament, compel her to come there and explain why those things. That is an avenue for that explanation, because that is not an adversarial situation. She can be compelled to say, how did you do these calculations? How did this end up here and how did that happen? You don't go to court, because if she goes to court to go and prove that, to what end? That is not proving your case. Your case is that nobody got 50% plus 1. That's the requirement of 63.3. So if you want her just to come and show you the calculation, which you have the pink sheet, then you calculate and show that nobody got that, then you can challenge her to show why she calculated to get 50 plus 1 for Akufo-Addo. Simple and short. But when you fail, and now you say, oh, it's public service, she must do it so people's minds are put at rest, then parliament is where you can go do that, not in the courtroom, because that is the appropriate forum to put Ghanaians' minds at ease. You don't go to court to do that. Okay, you understand? So that is the challenge, and I think is falling for the trap now, because they have shifted. Yeah, so they have shifted the goalposts. One second, just one minute. They have shifted the goalposts to the point where, if you read their petition and you are listening to them in court, you wonder what exactly they are in court for, because what they are in court for, arguing today, is not what they originally were pleading before the court.
Franklin.
Well, Richard makes very interesting analogy. The analogy of the football game presupposes that the star witness is on the side of the coach, on the side of the referee, in this case. So no, because that's what you're saying. My point is
is the respondents who say we are not going to have our witnesses testify.
Yeah, but the respondent here is the referee.
No. The respondent is the
There's a player and a referee.
No. The respondent. Let me appropriately get. So the respondent, who is the MPP representing the president, okay, is a team. And then the first.
Ronaldo. You said Ronaldo.
Yeah, so those are players. So we're talking about teams. So the petitioner is a team. Okay. The second respondent is a team. The first respondent is a team. Okay. So one team is playing another, and they have star witnesses. So in the case of the second respondent, the chairman of the campaign, Chairman Mark Benu, and then for the first respondent, the EC chair, who have put testimonies to commit to testifying. And then in playing the game, the NDC team clearly could not show that they are winning the game. And those who know they are winning the game says that we don't need to have Ronaldo play for us to win. We don't need Messi to play for us to win. We are winning the game. And then now they are compelling the referee, who are the justices, to say that force Team Akufo-Addo, force Team EC to have their testimony heard in the dock. So in other words, bring Jim Mensah, force them to bring Jim Mensah, force them to bring Chairman McMahon. And they say, we don't need them, we have won the game.
The referee here is not being forced. The referee was the one who conducted the election. Anyway, I've seen in the petition, by the way, this talk about the petitioners having shown cause about the figures. What they've said is that given the narratives of how the first respondent arrived at the total figures, if you take that on face value, the way she declared the results, it shows that nobody crossed the line. That's the argument. The issues about whether they came to court to be asked, do you have your figures or not, is either here or there. They are saying that on the face of the things you have declared, your own figures, total valid vote cast, when you do the calculation, it shows somebody got 50 points, something now. So they, on that basis,
Nobody
say no. But they are also saying that how exactly you arrived at that, because of the different scenarios through which you announce the results, you should ask questions. For me, I would have jumped at the opportunity. You see, because you are conducting this exercise not because you think your lawyer is showing strong defense and you are being prevented from getting to the top. I suspect the point really is that how did you see, it's not, maybe the elections themselves are competitive, but trust me, I can tell you 7, probably 8 out of 10 Ghanaians now do not necessarily believe the EC in terms of its conduct is believable. Simply because every step of the way she was throwing bricks at the process of trying to get into the box.
Karen, we argued this the last time.
No, but that's
let's move on.
You are just
this
saying
thing,
that 2013.
No, you are talking about Jim Mensah and the allegations the NDC made from day one up to when they went to court.
I'm not even talking about
Besides, she was throwing bricks. What bricks are you talking
about? There were almost 3 attempts asking the intelligence.
Yeah. Oh, you mean the legal process? Yeah, but that is how the law is.
Yeah.
We are not going to manufacture the process for the court now. That's how their process is. And in 2013, it was the same thing.
Yeah, but
it was the same thing.
Saw accountability in 2013.
See? What space were you wearing back then?
I wasn't wearing a space. All I saw is that I was happy to see the EC boss in the dock answering questions about what he superintended. Whether he chose or forced, whatever it was, at least it was put to rest.
But you see, that avenue exists now for you and me. But if there is any doubt, go to Parliament. You can have that hearing. And Parliament has equal power to put people under oath because you have chosen not to be. And I was telling you, if you pretend to be asleep, nobody can wake you up.
For me, I have
nobody can wake you up.
To doubt the EC's conduct, and I'm sure you know.
You are prejudiced. That's all this is.
I'm not prejudiced.
You are prejudiced. That's all this is.
The night of an election, she disenfranchises my own people.
You see, so he's not a fair commentator. You are not a fair commentator. You are prejudiced, so I understand.
Let's.
She could have judged the boss and said, "Oh, if he's sacked, I didn't do this, or I did this, I did that," and I apologize.
So we ended up on Sal.
So if she came and redeemed herself on Sal, according to you, now your view will change.
And say that
your prejudice will go away.
It's not prejudice.
It's prejudice.
I would have been comforted, but not hearing anything at all. It's just unfair.
No, but
the
you see,
point is that the legal process seems to have helped her to escape scrutiny and accountability, especially on this sort of thing. By the way, my point is, once she succeeds at one, she's likely to succeed at the other.
No.
You don't know what next you do. Probably legislate existence away.
No.
Oh,
okay, let's not jump. Let's not jump to conclusions. Let's move on. Let's talk about the appropriateness of language that has been used so far during the proceedings against the EC, even the Supreme Court. We know that the NDC, a member of the NDC's legal team, Dr. Dominic Ayene, was even cited for contempt. Briefly, what do you make?
Yeah, so I think I want to congratulate, I don't know if there's any congratulation in that, but I want to, perhaps congratulate Dr. Ayene for the humility exemplified in understanding that maybe he slipped, and then realizing that took the initiative to apologize to the court in a letter, and therefore was subject to doing it publicly, and he did that. I think it's a good example. It brings it brings all of us to that moment where we understand that, yes, we need to be loyal to the process. We can have our own disagreements, our idiosyncratic views of what is happening, but let's make the commentary based on facts and not try to indict the court or impugn the integrity of the court. So I think that on that score, he's shown example which is worthy of follow. And I think that even in 2013 or so, there was a similar instance, I think, where the youth organizer then for the MPP, Samia Uku, was actually brought also in court to apologize. So all that teaches us, and I think that these two examples will guide us to understanding that, yes, it's part of the democratic exercise for us to have our free speech, but let's have our free speech within the bounds that actually guide the system to work well. The general discussion about the case, I think, has not been too bad, except that my very good friend and others who wear the same glasses he wears always keep shifting the goalpost, so it becomes a bit frustrating to pin them down on one fact and discuss that. But apart from that, I think we've all done our best. It's been a good and instructive exercise. Most people have had the opportunity to learn a few things. And now, I think in Ghana, the awareness of using the court or the three arms of government working together to advance our democracy has been seen. So all that is left is managing how we engage as citizens and as political activists and as CSOs, how we can help the process. But I think the commentary around this court case has not been too bad at all.
Goalpost shifter. Franklin.
Well, I think the commentary around it has been passionate. There have been people who have made comments who, I think the language around it, listening to the communication team, or is it the communication team? Yeah.
Yeah.
For the two sides, makes interesting hearing. You know, sometimes you hear subtle jabs here and there, which is allowed. And for those of us who may not understand what the court processes are, sometimes when the communication team members speak, we tend to understand a bit further. Richard is right. I think the high, tense situation that we had in 2012 not similar. Partially because grown, I suspect we've grown a lot in the years of democracy, and I also think that people probably just want to hurry up and move on with their lives, because they've come to one conclusion that at the end of the day, what's in it for me, and the sports of politics, sometimes they don't tend to benefit the way they want. People have become frankly cynical, and to the extent that for those of us who watch these things for the purposes of deepening our democracy and constitutional growth, we are in awe, really. And so for me, I didn't see a lot of high octane spin per se, simply also because the issues of the petitioner's case was probably just that simple. It wasn't as complex as producing a lot of pink sheets to show propriety here and there. But yeah, we've come a long way. And kudos to both sides. Certainly can't wait for much for to get on with their lives.
Yeah, the judgment.
The business must continue wherever it goes. And I suspect that there's a lot of time we don't have. Really, there's COVID, there's all kinds of pressures we need to deal with. And after COVID, even though the vaccines are appearing, we need to rebuild the economy. We need to get on with our lives, really. So some of us are just waiting to get busy. So
Get busy. But Karen, also maybe that will jog Franklin's memory. The other part of the commentary and the conduct around this case that I didn't like are two things. One, the address toward the bench. I think I mentioned that last time. I don't find that particularly enabling of the process in a positive light, that it reserves the respect and the dignity we accord the Supreme Court. But the other part, which I think we can discuss, is the way the lawyers themselves, okay, I'm not sure if this is how the practice is, but the way they try to question their own processes, okay, of law that is established, that they know, to the extent that they would attack it as though that is not how it ought to be. I think I found that very interesting. So I am hoping that perhaps we would not consider these situations to be normal. Say, for example, in a case where a Supreme Court rules on something, okay, to say that, okay, for example, the application to reopen your case would not be granted. Now, in disagreeing with the court, I think that it shouldn't translate into thinking that what the Supreme Court has done is not according to process. If you impugn or you try to impute that motive, then you are actually questioning the right and the processes that you have. So that I agree. No, I think it's a subtle point I'm trying to make. There's a way you can disagree.
I think what you are suggesting, what I'm trying to say is that there must be some end to litigation. At some point, you just have to accept that, well, this is the way to do it. I've thought about things of that nature. But some lawyers have said, well, the processes are allowed, so you want to test it and stretch it.
See how it goes.
Right? Sometimes you ask yourself, after being turned down for 7-0, and then seek a review, it doesn't look as if the arguments have been made strong enough to warrant a review. And so somehow it may be like as if you're really testing or pushing the boundary. But some lawyers have said, well, it's a process, and again, it's an adversarial situation, so you want to push the boundaries as much as you can. I suspect that's what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
You mean the language?
Yeah. So fine. I think you made a point too. But you see, the point is, okay. So it is questioning in a way. Then the outcome then is that it is wrong because we have lost. Okay. It is wrong because they've not held the position we are advancing. You understand? If they don't uphold our position, then that means that approach is wrong. And I think that as a lawyer, it's not appropriate if I am, because I'm putting myself in their shoes, if I don't find it advancing off the profession to actually question what I know is the prerogative of the judges to do one way or the other. Because it's a dual issue.
I think it's just a legal tactics.
I think what they do eventually, what will settle this, what they are driving at is, when the rulings have been made, they both say at the court case. I guess that's the way it ends.
Yeah.
Or
but
are
then
you speaking about the media engagement?
Exactly, the engagement.
Oh, you mean the media?
The engagement that follow seeks to question.
Oh, I see.
You understand that in a graphic way that tells you, if you are just a casual listener, you just say, but why did the court do that? You understand? You question it in way, not in terms of law. Like, say, there are a few instances where they will say, oh, we disagree. And I think I want to use a classic example for you. Now, in 2013, when the ruling came, right, when President was going to respond to that, President Akufo-Addo then, candidate, says that he disagrees with the court. Okay? So that is, I said I wanted this outcome, but you chose that outcome. I disagree. I rather you have held the case for me. Right. But if you didn't uphold my position, the outcome I accept. That kind of dialogue is what I'm trying to say. So therefore, if you go to even question the ruling, then it's on the basis of what you think
Should have been done.
was overlooked, in which case, if they had paid attention to that, then your case would have won the day.
We've had one incident where lawyer Dominic Ayini went overboard and said, "Thought this was
Predetermined.
Apart from that, I think it's part of the strategy to basically say your case until we've reached the crescendo, which is the match 4, where somebody will say, "I don't accept these people were this and this and that." Maybe that's where we should be worried. But I think so far, I think it's just jostling, really.
Yeah. No, but that is, so you see, this what I'm saying really went to a point. I'm not sure which justice said this, but I think it was attributed to one of the justices to have said that if you win, or if we rule for you, then the justices are good. If we don't, then they are bad. And that is how graphic it got, to the extent that it's as if, so it is, I am a lawyer, you're officer of the court. I'm not saying I am, but you're officer of the court. So you conduct yourself in understanding the rule that you either will be held, the case will either be ruled for you or not. So when you go to argue that, you say it in ways that reflect the tradition of the court. I just worry that we'll get into a situation where when somebody loses in a particular argument, then it's like, oh, that what they did is wrong, and so therefore whoever won did not win, and that for me undermines the process. And that is why Franklin is saying that it will get to a point, and this is really my point, because if we end up undermining the system, what will be left is that there will be zero confidence in the system. That's really is my point. To the extent that what you were saying, that, and then people now will say, okay, well, the court is not an option. Let's resort to this avenue by insisting at the polling station until and unless we agree, there is no movement. And I don't think that we want to get ourselves in that situation. Let's try to play up the system, allow it to work so that we all have confidence in it. If we don't have confidence and we have to appeal, then it should be on the strength of evidence and law, right? That's what I'm saying.
You have a point, because I mean, on the lighter note, the satirical note, I mean, I see people on my walls trying to say, "Oh, unanimous FC," basically trying to say that. And it was so funny that at the point I also used it and said, "Oh, I hope that the team will return a different." It was fun, because, and I guess people were really interested. The whole idea of people watching this thing. The only thing is that anyway, that's okay.
You want to reserve your comment, but before we go, looking at how people are involved, would you say they've been educated properly? The work of the media, has education gone down well?
I think so, or maybe Franklin can take a jab at it.
It's gone down well. I mean, I guess, especially in the cases where the petitioners have been said not to have acted according to the rules of court. I mean, according to the rules. That is seeping, I suppose, seeping gradually. But the other thing which is also seeping into the minds of people are that, well, again, back to the EC. I mean, it still sits in people's minds, and I see the sentiment. Sometimes I use my wall as a barometer, and I feel that people feel no, and these are not partisan people, Not that I know everybody who comments on the wall, but I can tell how they think.
Neutral.
But otherwise, I think people have been sufficiently enamored of the court process, and I suspect there's an expectation of one way or the other how the verdict will go. There are some people who obviously believe that, well, clearly the petitioners may not have shown fault. This case is not really going anywhere. There are those who feel that, well, it's a process and they tried. I mean, you hear things of that nature, that they tried. They tried only because, again, they are giving credence to the fact that Dean did not elect to get into the box. Elected us to get into the box. I guess those are the thorny issues that will stay with us forever. And I don't know how that will play out after this. for this.
Richard, education all in all.
Education, very fantastic. For once, again, well, it's been the practice, but there's been a practical demonstration to all the observers, or to our country, that court operates by processes. And those processes are loyal to itself, not to a petitioner or a respondent. So that you come to court and the process is supposed to be loyal to its position so that it is fair to both sides. So you, as a petitioner, you have the right to call witnesses, and you say you want to call 5 witnesses, and you get to 3 and you say, no, I don't need witnesses. Then you stop. Then respondent, your time to make your case. And respondent says, no, we won't call witnesses. We are closing our case. That is the court process. That education has come. Now, what is left is the invitation to my brother to agree to say that that is how the court works, that it is proper for the respondent or even the petitioner to say, I will call only 3 instead of 5, which I promised. That is how the court works. So if that is playing out now, it is not Madame Jean Mensah who says, I won't come, or the first respondent, second respondent who says, I won't make Chama McMenu get in the dock, but it is the court process that allows them not to come. Let's have that conversation and be clear so that the public is not confused. So once the public understands that, then we can go on and do our politics of trying to muddy the water for our own good. But for now, it is clear that time-tested court rules allows for the first respondent not to call their witness, second respondent not to call their witness. So in that sense, Madame Jean Mensah did not choose not to come, but the court rules allowed her not to go and testify. And that's the fact.
It's interesting how Richard ends with this point every time. But gentlemen, ladies who've been listening to us, this has been Think Tank. And as usual, my guest, Franklin Kujo of Imani Africa, and then Richard Anyago of the Dankwa Institute have made us a very interesting show. We've been talking about the differences and similarities between the 2013 election petition and the 2020 election petition. If you missed this, don't worry, you can get this video, a playback, on our Facebook page. That's Asaase Radio 99.5. My name is Karen Dodu. Make a date with us next week, same time at 7 p.m. And if you have any topic you'd want us to discuss, you can send it to our number 020-000-0995. That'll be all for today. Up next is the news at 8. Good evening.
Woke up in the morning.
Hello, welcome to the Asaase News Update at 8 p.m. In our headlines, Minister Designate for Lands and Natural Resources, Samuel Abdullahi Jinapor, pledges to reduce number of days spent to obtain land titles in Ghana. Also, President Akufo-Addo to receive the COVID-19 vaccine first following arrival of the first consignment. And Upper West Regional Ghana AIDS Commissioner Office announced its reduction in the infection rate of HIV